to the Policy Committee meeting. I'm going to dispense with some of the formalities. We all know that we met FOIA requirements and that this meeting is open to the public and can be viewed on YouTube. And I'm glad to see a couple of staff members with us. Thank y'all for being here. We have with us, we're going to start with a meditative moment, if you don't mind. Amen. You'll join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, again, welcome. My name is Sherry White. I'm the chairperson of the Policy Committee. To my right is Mac McLeod. To my left is Dr. William Wright, our superintendent, and then to his left is Dr. Reagan. The only board member missing tonight is Miss English, and I did not hear from her, but that's okay. Is she with us by virtual, perhaps? Shelley? Okay. And a couple of our community members were not able to be with us tonight. So we will carry on. This meeting is not going to take all night. They never will with us. But I would like to thank y'all and also like to thank Miss Shelley Galloway for helping us tonight. She is greatly appreciated by all of us. Okay, I'm going to just take a moment here. The Policy Committee has kind of been a hit and miss thing because there have been matters within the district that were very important, and so we allowed those things to be addressed. However, we're a policy-making body, and we have our entire policy manual's been revamped by SCASBA, and so we are going to get ours up to date. And so this, with a few exceptions here and there, this committee will meet the, we meet the second and third Monday of the month, right? The regular board. So we're going to meet the third, the first and third. It'll be the Wednesday after. So we're going to meet every other week, with a few exceptions, so that we can get caught up and address this. Some of these policies are pro forma. We'll have some of those tonight. That the language has just been brought up to date by SCASBA to match current legislation, with very little for us to do. Then we've got a couple that we need to discuss. So we've got to include those that don't take our time because it has to get on the board, to the board, and get voted on. So that's how we're going to proceed going forward. Now, the approval of the agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda? For a committee? Okay, that works for me. And also the consent agenda, the Policy Committee minutes from the last time, which Dr. Reagan so graciously led that meeting when I got sick that day. So thank you very much for taking care of that for me. I do appreciate it. Okay. So our agenda was typed up a little incorrectly. There are a couple of changes. As far as policies we're going to review, you do have them in front of you, but most of them are the ones that we just need to say, okay, yeah, this is something that we don't really have to even discuss. It comes from Columbia, and let's send it on to the board. So the first of those policies is IA. And this is one that we're going to need to add a little bit to or do something with. Um, it is called Instructional Goals and Learning Objectives. And in parentheses it says Philosophy of Education. When you read the document, it is philosophy. There is no mention of instructional goals or learning objectives other than, what's the best way to put it? What was the word I used starting to write? Social, which our kids need this. I'm not saying it doesn't need to be here, but kids need to understand themselves. They need to understand how to belong in social, cultural, and ethnic groups, develop positive attitudes toward education, gain opportunity and encouragement. I'm kind of skipping around. All of these things are things that our children need. But the title of this is Instructional Goals and Learning Objectives. So do you think we need to add at least a couple of bullet points in there that would address instructional goals? Is that something y'all have thought about? Because this is a philosophy here, but to me they're only social and emotional goals. There's no instructional goals. Dr. Wright, Dr. Reagan?
I don't have a comment. This is the first time, you said this was this included in the, because I don't remember seeing this inside of the.
It was supposed to have been.
Yeah, I don't remember reviewing this one, so I'm going to have to take some time to read it.
Okay, we can.
Right.
Right.
Into that. I understand what you're saying about
Right.
social emotional.
Oh yeah, oh that's great.
However, I think we would need some time to.
Okay, well we can take that one and let's look at that one between now and the meeting in 2 weeks and come back with some, and Dr. Wright, please, I invite your input as well.
What I really think is that we probably need to get with SCSBA and see, because after our conversation, I kind of looked at it and certainly agree that there are not many instructional goals developed, identified here. But I think I think we kind of need to see what other districts have for IA if they have it, and
Right.
then we'll kind of we'll try to do some.
Well, what I found interesting is the difference between the new one and the one we already had. And the one we already had actually addresses instructional goals, standards-based system of education with content standards for specific courses of study. So it actually had the language there. Now, why they removed it, I don't know. Their note says they revised the introductory language and they highlighted portions that were our district goals. So, I would propose, because our original policy actually has those things in it, that we would just reinsert them. Does that make sense? So let's look at that, see if that would satisfy the overall objective there, and revisit that. And what I'm talking about is our old policy. Let's see. Look at the first, it even addresses the superintendent in this. So let's look at the first 4 paragraphs of the old policy and look at adding it back to the new that they sent us. Does everyone agree with that? Does that sound good to y'all? Okay.
I have a question.
Sure.
The policy IA, this document that we have, the hard copy, isn't it the same thing that we have on the policy?
That's our current policy,
Right.
adopted in 2011. And what we have gotten from the from SCASBA is online in our shared with me documents under the I section. And they have omitted much of those first 4 paragraphs in their document.
Okay.
And so what my suggestion is, and we can revisit this in 2 weeks, this is not one of those critical, we got to get in compliance policies, is that we look at adding those paragraphs back in, the ones that are needed. Okay? So what you're looking at, this is our things. The new proposals are online. Okay?
Ms. White, if I may, I'll
Yes, sir.
try to make sure that our office looks at maybe what some of our colleagues are doing with IA as well, and try to have that information ready for us in 2 weeks as well. Because
And if you could send it to me ahead of time,
yes, ma'am.
so that I can make sure it's in everyone's packet,
There you go. There you go.
then
Yes,
we
ma'am.
can, that way we'll all have a chance to look at it ahead of time.
Makes sense. Yes, ma'am.
And your packets are coming earlier next time, I promise. Okay. The next one on the list, and all they did was, is IB, academic freedom. They updated the policy language to include notifying parents with a final decision on content, expressing the proper balance between the academic freedom of teachers and students. The new language does not look it looks very similar. That the teachers have the freedom and the right to teach, learn, and communicate, or students do, about controversial issues with economic, political, scientific, artistic, or social significance that are related to the district educational program. The policy states that our position is students should be able to listen to all sides of a controversial issue, differentiate between facts and opinions, and to arrive at independent conclusions, and expose students to current events and issues that are within their intellectual grasp. Teachers will maintain a classroom environment that's conducive to a free exchange and examination of ideas which are pertinent to the course of study. Teachers will not attempt, directly or indirectly, to limit or control students' ideas, opinions, and beliefs concerning any issue, and will allow students to express divergent ideas in a manner appropriate for the classroom environment. The last one states, through lesson plans or other means, teachers will consult with administration on the appropriateness of discussing controversial issues with students. Parents will be notified as necessary. The final decision on controversial curricular content, reading material, and other instructional tools will rest with the board. That is the new language from SCASBA. And it seems appropriate to me. Any comments,
No comment.
addition, subtraction, or we're okay to send this one through the way it is?
Yes.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, on the next one is IC, which is on the school year. This is pretty basic, and most of this is codified in law. So, yeah, and it has the references at the bottom. It's about makeup days and that kind of stuff. We're following all of this, correct, Dr. Wright?
Yes, ma'am. Calendar law is pretty, it's pretty rote. I mean, it's a clear expectation on it. Yes, ma'am. So we
Right.
follow those minimums at least
Mhm.
in each case.
And then also, there's one sentence in here I found very important. This does not apply to schools operating on a year-round modified school calendar, which is what we adopted. Is that not correct? Aren't we on a modified calendar? I thought so. So,
First year.
right, right. We voted on a modified. Okay. So, if there are no objections, I think this one can go to the board for first reading. Everyone agree with that? Okay. Next is ID, which is about the school day. And again, this is codified in law. What has to be provided, what can and cannot happen as far as hours of operation, teachers' conferences, that kind of thing. Moment of silence. And I'm just going to express a personal opinion here. We call it a moment of silence now. I prefer to call it prayer. That's my opinion. And I think people should be able to call it what they want to call it. But again, personal opinion. So this one, because it's all codified, I say we send it on to the board for first reading. Everybody in agreement?
Yes, send it on. I do have a question.
Sure.
According to that calendar that we have, are there any wellness, we used to have wellness days there, are they still in that calendar?
So, last year, my first year, we had some built in. This year, help me out, Dr. Young. This year, we do not have them. Is that correct? Right. No, sir. Sure. Sure.
We don't have the half days for wellness days, however, extra days were built in, like a fall break, to say they're actually getting full days instead of half days. So there are probably 3 to 4 full days that they're getting
They were built into breaks.
that were built in, well, like
Or-
in October, they had
Right.
this 1 or 2 days in October, that were actual full days that were in the previous calendar. There are 2 extra days, like in the second semester, without students. So before, where it was called a wellness day, that was a half day. Now they actually have full days without students.
Okay.
It's not called a wellness day. It's not a holiday or a.
Right.
And that's because of the naming of it. When we went to, when the board approved us going to an earlier schedule, that allowed us to have a little bit more flexibility to do so.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification, Ms. Galloway. Appreciate that. Does that answer your question, Dr. Reagan?
Yeah, and the fall break, that's not a week, right? That's only for 2 days,
Couple of days, but
right?
again, it's 2 full days, but they didn't.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So now moving right along is policy IE, which is organization of instruction. This one does require a little bit of conversation, but I don't know that there will be too much. We have 2 options of what we want to adopt. And it may be that we put it before the board with both options included. What we have right now is, make sure I am reading it correctly. We have what is in the new thing, option 1, which is, I'm trying to find the language in the old. The board has established an organizational structure for the schools of the district that consist of an elementary school, K through 5, middle school, 6 through 8, and senior high, 9 through 12. Now, option 2, however, and I think this might, again, we can discuss and see how we want to move forward. Option 2 reads, the board does not view any particular grade organization as intrinsically being preferable for serving the students of the district. Therefore, the board has determined the distribution of age and or grade levels at the individual school building level. And because we have a prep school that includes grades through 8, yeah, K through 8, that's why I thought this one might be a little more appropriate. The determination is subject to change, and any changes will be predicated on what best meets the needs of the students and what makes the most efficient use of available space, staff, and financial resources. And the district maintains a district technical or career center that serves students in the high schools interested in occupational training. So our options are 1 and 2. I thought 2 was more appropriate, but that's my opinion, and I'm one person. Dr. Wright?
What I really think is that we might want to stay with the language of 1, but have our K-8 school identified as well. You know, we do have elementary schools, and the uniqueness of that is out by the base we have, you know, a K2, is that right? K2, 3, 5. So we've got some configurations there, but this basically talks about configurations of schools, and so this language would be appropriate. I think it would be okay for us to say, you know, maybe at the end of this sentence we have one school that is a K-8 or something like that. Because I think if we get into saying
Right.
it's open, we really don't have any. This is kind of what used to happen. There were some districts that did intermediate schools, which might have meant fourth and fifth grade in one district, and
Aiken has a
there you go.
6th grade.
There you
I think
go.
it is.
There you go.
Their school is only 6th graders.
Right. So that's
Yeah.
kind of the spirit in which I think this was generated. Now I wasn't here in 2014, but I think to properly identify ourselves, I think we would say elementaries. I think we would say middle. I think we would say high. I would strike the word senior because we really don't use that anymore. We call high schools high schools. They're 9th through 12th grade, and then I would just indicate that we have a K-8 school also, and you know, something of that nature, because
Right.
K-8s are a lot of districts are still maintaining K-8s in rural, less populated areas. That's not.
So we could actually add in the sentence after, because we have in establishing educational structure in
Yes,
our
ma'am.
policy now, we could actually extract that sentence that the board has also determined that we can make it meet the K through 8
That's my
guideline.
recommendation.
So
yes,
that
ma'am.
we- okay.
And that's all, and that's
All
all
right.
it is, a recommendation. Yes, ma'am.
I tend to agree with that. Does that sound right to y'all? Come on. Okay. So other than that, the rest of it I think is pretty much and also let me see. Yeah, we provide preschool, child development, and adult and community programs. So and we're doing all of that anyway. So and the last sentence, which was not in our policy, says any proposed substantial modification in the organization of instruction as adopted by the board requires board review and approval, which makes sense. So we'll make sure that that's in there. So, okay, let me write my little note here. Okay.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
for the option 2,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying I agree with it, but they brought about the changes due to the audit. Did they give you any clarification as to why they put an option 2 in there?
No, wait a minute, it says, we have included your current information with revised language. However, option 2 has also been included for the board's review. The remaining highlighted sections are your district's current information on technical and career. And they added the last sentence that the board had to approve any change. So that was the only explanation that they gave us. Thank you. All right. Next up is IG, Curriculum Development, Adoption, and Review. They made minor editorial revisions and revised the legal references. Anything that they add, well, I guess they just changed the language so that it met the law. It references, the old one referenced a lot of other policies. And it refers to clusters of study system in the elementary grades. So that these clusters can move through and identifying students as to which cluster they would belong to based on their academic acumen, is that the correct word? Or their personal preferences. Some kids don't want to go to college. Some kids want to be CNC operators. And you don't learn that in college. You learn it at Tech. Or possibly in a technical high school, if you have one. So I understand this. Did anybody see anything in this one that concerned them? Because this is pretty much how we're doing it. Is it not, Dr. Wright?
Yes, ma'am.
I didn't see a lot of difference. Matter of fact. Okay. So is everybody comfortable with moving that one along? We can't argue with the law. They will win. There's a song that says that too. Okay. Now, we're almost there. IGCA, which is service learning. They provided an updated model to include a general statement that service learning activities will model NACSTA guidelines to allow for flexibility in implementation of service learning programs and revised legal references. Do we have anybody doing this within the school district? Dr. Wright? I mean, this is an option, is my understanding, if somebody wanted to do it, right? That's how I read it.
Yes, ma'am. That needs more development.
The IGCA
Turn the
dash
mic on.
R, maybe?
That needs more development.
Okay.
The work behind it, the policy is in place, and
Right.
we certainly need it, but that program needs more development.
Okay. So the policy itself,
It's fine.
because it's
Yes, ma'am.
from law and everything, we can pass that one along for approval. All right. Now, the last thing on the docket.
When we say,
That's okay.
when we talk about this policy and we say that we have to develop it a little more, do you know whether there was a current, I guess, plan in place for service learning, or that will be incorporated when we start looking into?
Yes, sir. I think that just as most districts have service learning is kind of ebbs and flows depending on course subjects and the teacher and what they can implement, and most of us, most districts lost some of that during COVID because we couldn't get out and provide those kinds of opportunities. It's certainly a great way to have children participate in the process. Now, service learning could be project based for completion of a certain amount of hours for a child to graduate. It could be an opportunity for them to engage in activities to complete course requirements, and so that's kind of what I meant by redeveloping or so forth. The policy needs to remain in place to give us an option, but certainly that is an area that I would not say that we're fully developed in for sure.
I would also like to add this, if you don't mind, Dr. Wright. I noticed that actually the policy we already had in place was much more detailed than this one. And there is a drafter's note in here, add additional district information here. So my question to you would be, are you comfortable with the language that we already have? It's right there.
Can I see the new one?
Yes. That's the new one. And it's eliminated all of this.
So this is more generic, which is probably going to serve us better because
okay.
here's the thing that I think we're going to run into.
Still need it?
You know, ma'am. Service learning in the past was probably linking up with, with the physical environment that kids then went to and, provided community service and so forth and so on. I'm thinking that that's drawn up that way because it's going to give us more flexibility. 'Cause some of this work can be done now virtually,
Right.
and so I'm thinking that's why it's condensed. And so my recommendation would be that we move towards that because this boxes us in terms of what service learning is.
And this
more
allows
so
you
than-
more leeway and allows you to
yes,
do
ma'am. That's my
what
opinion.
we can do. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
I
That-
have
that
no,
just from glancing at it.
well,
I
I
wanna
have
be
no
clear.
problem with that if the
Yeah.
rest of the committee is okay with that. We can put it before the board, the shorter version. Because there were a lot of, the superintendent will this, that, and the other, and gives him a little more flexibility, especially since this kind of went away with COVID.
COVID, along with changing needs, because that trend kind of started prior to. To be honest with you, when we increased required instructional standards, a lot of that service learning components went away. Some states, in fact, eliminated what was the thing called graduation projects. That's what I was trying to think of all along. So service learning used to be, in some places, a project requirement of graduates, and then because of the issues with doing some of the work in rural districts, it was eliminated. And so,
Okay, and it looks to me like the part that they have not addressed here, that's on our old policy, would better belong in the IGCA-R neighborhood,
that's correct.
right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, this is the policy, and then R is how you implement, correct? Okay, that works for me. If Dr. Reagan is okay with that, Mr. McLeod had to step out for a moment. Now, there's one more policy. Yeah, that's all. And that is IHA. There's not a lot of substantive changes, however, there is, they reworded introductory language, updated the anti-discrimination statement, and revised the legal references. We currently have the opt-out of instruction rule and the opt-out form. And this addresses online learning is what this is referring to. But it was IHAR and E, which is the form, were developed for COVID purposes so that a parent could choose to keep their child at home during COVID. And it has been recommended to me by several people within administration that we don't really need that anymore. We are, except for people who have to do online because of disciplinary issues, we are all in class. Is that not correct? Right, okay, so that's for medical
But we take care of
issues.
that.
That's taken care of, is it not? We have other policies that actually cover that. Is that not correct? Okay, so eliminating the just in general, oh, I want to keep my kid at home and not put him in the classroom, taking that away, therefore we don't need the opt-out form. Do you have a problem with that? I don't, they need to be in the classroom if they can be, correct? I think we found out that's where they belong, is it not? And of course, medically fragile, disciplinary issues, we have things in place to cover that. Other than those few exceptions, they need to be in their chairs. Correct, Dr. Campbell? That's what I thought. Okay, so the recommendation, as I understand it, and y'all tell me if you agree, is that IHA will go forward as they have recommended it, and we eliminate the opt-out and the form. And there's a lot of codification quoted here. But this is mainly the availability of instruction is what this addresses, and non-discrimination. And of course, we would not discriminate if somebody was physically unable to be in a class. Correct? So we're good. Everybody good on that one? To move it forward with the recommendation of deleting IHAR and IHAE. Okay. Well, I apologize. We went 10 minutes over. I had an alarm set that I set wrong, apparently. But we're going to try to hold these things to an hour. So, and a couple of things needed and deserve discussion. And when there are things that deserve more discussion, we won't have as many to go over. So, because I try to prepare ahead of time. So I thank y'all for your time. I thank you, Ms. Galloway, for your time, Dr. Gamble, Mr. Myers, Mr. McLeod, Dr. Reagan, and Dr. Wright. Thank you. And thank anyone else who has joined us, and this will conclude this meeting. Thank you.